wake up to the sound of a bell, not the kind that signals school or salvation, but something heavier, slower, like a warning. The air smells of damp hay, wood smoke, and something bitter you can't place. You sit up on a pile of straw in a thatch roof cottage and realize you're not in 2025 anymore. Welcome to the Holy Roman Empire. Year irrelevant, fear eternal. Outside, boots stomp on frozen mud, cloaks swish, voices whisper your name like a prayer or a curse. You were a midwife yesterday, or a healer, or just the girl who picked herbs a little too confidently. But now, you're something else. You're suspicious. The setup. Suspicion is a full-time job. Europe, 15th to 18th century. A time when your neighbors believed more in demons than disease, more in the devil than dysentery, and definitely more in the smell of sulfur than science. And if you, unfortunate soul, happen to be a woman who talks back, a man with a limp, or just someone whose cow died mysteriously last Tuesday, congratulations, you're on trial. Not officially. Not yet. That comes later. First comes the gossip. She walks alone at night. She brews things that bubble. I once saw her talking to a cat. It starts in the market, where onions rot faster than the truth. It spreads to the church pews, and finally, to someone with a pen, a seal, and far too much free time. And you're still trying to explain that you were just making soup. The first accusation, a whisper, becomes a weapon. You wake up one morning and find your door marked with a cross. Red, dripping, fresh. No one says it to your face, of course. That would be too brave, but the baker suddenly won't sell to you. The well-watered tastes funny, and children stop laughing when you pass by. In a town of 500 people, 50 of whom can read, the hunt doesn't start with a bang. It starts with silence, one that grows heavier by the hour. Soon, someone accuses you of weather magic. Because the crops failed, you try to argue that it was the drought, or maybe the hailstorm. But guess what? Hail is also witchcraft. It's a lose-lose. The arrest, the candle burns. On both ends, it's always night when they come for you. Always. The knock is quiet, but you hear it anyway, somehow. Even your bones know what it means. Two men with cloaks, one with a cross, one with a ledger. They ask you kindly at first, would you come with us? For questioning, but your hands are already tied. They walk you past your neighbors, who now peek through shutters. Some cross themselves, others smile a little too long. You don't cry. That comes later. The dungeon, not like the movies. Forget torches on stone walls. Forget caped villains monologuing. The room they throw you in is small, dark, and wet. You can't stand fully upright. A single candle glows in the corner like it's afraid of the dark too. The floor is dirt. There's no bed, no food. Just a bucket in the corner and a hook in the ceiling. You look up and realize that's not for lighting. You wait. Minutes blur into hours. Hours bleed into days. You forget what your hands look like. And just when you think maybe they've forgotten you too, the door creaks open. The interrogation. Believe, confess, burn. The man who enters doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. He wears black robes and a silver cross. He smells like ink and incense, and he already believes you're guilty. All he needs now is a confession. You try reasoning. You say, I didn't do anything. He nods. Then he brings out the chair. It's not just a chair. It's a philosophy, a theology, a geometry of pain. You're strapped in and asked again, Did you consort with the devil? No, you whisper. They tighten the ropes. The wood creaks. So do your ribs. They ask again and again until finally you say yes, because there's a special kind of truth that comes from broken fingers. Witchcraft isn't real, but the torture is. They say they want the truth, but what they want is the story. They want names, meetings, forest rituals, midnight feasts with horned beasts and unholy communion. They want something they can write down, something they can stamp. So you give it to them. Yes, I flew. Yes, I danced with the devil. Yes, I kissed a goat. The more ridiculous, the better, because the more you admit, the faster it ends. Or so you hope. Confession by any means. But wait, you already confessed, remember? They nod politely, but you didn't mean it. You confessed under pressure, with rope biting your wrists and your spine screaming in unnatural angles. So now they need a clean confession, one they can write in neat ink, something official, something holy. You're returned to the cell, but this time they bring friends. The devices, pain with purpose, reduced to a new cast of characters. The thumb screw, a compact little clamp that teaches your fingers to talk. The heretic's fork, a metal rod wedged between chin and chest so you can't lower your head, even in prayer. The iron chair, covered in spikes, heated from below. You don't sit in it. You surrender. Each tool comes with a psalm. Each turn of the screw, a prayer. Each scream, a confirmation. This isn't punishment. This is purification. The public spectacle. Eventually, the town is told to gather. You're confessed. You're processed. You're ready. The square is swept. Children are told to behave. Vendors sell roasted nuts and gossip. You're brought out in rags, hair shaved. A cart rolls you forward. People cheer. Some cry. But no one speaks for you. The pyre is tall. The ropes are tight. The priest reads your sins like a shopping list. And then someone lights the bottom. It starts slow. Then it cracks. Then it howls. They say the devil screams when you do. But it's just your voice, echoing in timber. Why they really did. Here's what they don't teach in school. This wasn't about witches. This was about control, about fear, about people needing someone to blame when the crops died, or the river flooded, or the goats refused to make more goats. Women who owned property, widows with no sons, midwives who saw too much, foreigners who spoke too little. The fire wasn't for your soul. It was for the village's peace of mind. The numbers prepared to frown. Over 100,000 people were accused of witchcraft in Europe. Tens of thousands were executed. Mostly women, mostly poor, mostly for the crime of being inconvenient. In Germany alone, some villages wiped out every single woman over the age of 40. It wasn't justice. It was erasure. Modern comparison. Moment. You think internet cancel culture is bad? Imagine if every passive-aggressive Facebook post you wrote turned into a death sentence. Imagine being burned alive because you accidentally left your bread out and it molded weird, or because your cat liked to sit near the fireplace, or because your husband got food poisoning. Witchcraft. Try unlucky. The psychology of the witch. Hunt hysteria feeds on repetition. One neighbor accuses another, then another, then another. Soon, no one remembers who started it, but everyone's screaming. It's like a fire made of fear, and people would rather burn others than feel it touch them. It's not about belief. It's about safety. Yours, not theirs. If you accuse first, you won't be next. A strange kind of peace. And just when it seemed like the fires would never stop, they did. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just quieter. One city stopped me burning, then another, then another. People got tired. Tired of ashes, tired of guilt, tired of burying grandmothers for sneezing wrong. And science, it didn't win overnight, but it waited quietly, patiently, until the fires burned out. The deep dive, where it got infamously worse. You're not in a nameless village anymore. You're in Salem or Bamberg or Trier, the kind of places where the history books stop pretending and start whispering. And this isn't just fear anymore. It's infrastructure, paperwork, payroll, an entire economy built on panic. Case study 1. The Bamberg Trials, Germany. Welcome to 1626. Bamberg, Germany. The 30 Years' War rages outside. Inside, a different war. The Bishop Prince Johann Georg II believes witches are weakening his crops. And if that sounds ridiculous, remember, you live in a world where priests double as meteorologists, and anything not explained by scripture is explained by Satan. You are Katharina Merklerin, a wealthy widow, smart, literate, and unfortunately respected. That's the issue. You're arrested for being independent, owning property, not remarrying. They drag you to the witch house, a place where the walls have heard more screams than prayers. You're tortured until you confess to riding a demonic goat named Balthazar and causing frost on Bishop Georg's garden peas. Your property is seized. Your body is burned. Your name forgotten, but your estate absorbed into the bishop's account. Justice, witch trials, as real estate schemes. This wasn't just superstition. It was monetized paranoia, confiscating land, forcing confessions, and charging families for the firewood used to burn their loved ones. Yes, you had to pay for your own execution. Itemized receipts included chains, fuel, priest's time, executioner's labor, cleaning the ashes afterward. Truly a full-service nightmare. Case study 2, Salem, Massachusetts, 1692. You know this one, but you don't know it like this. It didn't start with witches. It started with girls, 12-year-olds, bored, trapped in Puritanism, whispering stories and pretending to be afflicted. The town took them seriously, too seriously, and suddenly, spectral evidence, dreams, visions, rumors was all it took. Someone had a nightmare about you. That's a death sentence. You try to defend yourself. Clearly, Satan is helping you lie. You stay silent. Clearly, guilt. Lose-lose. You are Sarah. Good, poor, pregnant, and a known complainer. You beg for food. You talk to yourself. You own room. Congratulations, you're accused. In court, you say, I am no more a witch than you are a wizard. Bold, honest, doesn't matter. You're hanged. You are Giles Corey, an old man, accused, refuses to plead, so they press you with heavy stones, one, then another, and another, until you die. Your final words, more weight. That's not just badass. It's history's quietest middle finger. The aftermath, when the mob realizes it was wrong. Eventually, Salem said, oops. Too late, of course. Hundreds accused, 19 hanged, 1 crushed, countless imprisoned, and all because people thought their neighbor's sneezing was evidence of a satanic alliance. But the worst part, some people liked it. They felt powerful, useful, holy. Nothing justifies that. Everything explains it. Case study 3. The Würzburg Trials. Another German town, same century. More fire, more fear, more children. Over 40 kids were burned here. Yes, kids, because they sang songs, or drew chalk stars on walls, or accidentally said their bedtime prayers backward. When fear has no brakes, everyone gets run over. How it slowly stopped. The end didn't come from courage. It came from exhaustion. Too many people gone. Too many holes in the village. Too many women missing. Eventually, someone said, maybe this isn't how God works. Also, people stopped confessing. They realized that the less you said, the less they could use. Silence became armor. The survivor's strategy: keep quiet, keep moving. Many women escaped by fleeing to cities, marrying quickly, pretending to be dumber than they were, giving up healing and taking up silence. Not because they wanted to, because silence was safer than knowledge. Imagine hiding your intelligence just to survive. Legacy. We remember the hysteria, not the humanity. We remember the flames. We remember the screaming. We remember the numbers. But we forget the faces, the midwives who delivered babies, the herbalists who cured fevers, the women who dared to own books or gardens or opinions. History remembers witches, rarely their real names. The fires go out, but the ashes remain. You'd think that once the trials ended, the world would breathe again, that villages would mourn, that apologies would echo through churches, that someone, anyone, would say, "We got it wrong." But history doesn't apologize, not loudly. The trials slowed, the executions faded, but the word witch didn't disappear. It just changed clothes, from legal term to insult, from accusation to stigma, and for some, that was almost worse. How witch became a weapon again. By the 18th and 19th centuries, you weren't likely to be burned at the stake anymore. But call someone a witch, you weren't talking about cauldrons. You were calling them dangerous, manipulative, too powerful for a woman, too strange for a man. It became a slur for the outspoken, the sexual, the different, the survivors. You didn't need proof anymore. You just needed tone. The birth of witch in pop culture. Enter fiction. Then came the writers. And what did they do with the centuries of trauma? They turned it into entertainment. Shakespeare gave us the weird sisters. Cackling, cryptic, borderline cosmic. Fairy tales turned witches into baby-eating hags. Gothic novels made them dark seductresses. Hollywood made them wear pointy hats and stir green goop. The truth, the grief, the fear, the pain was gone, replaced by makeup and fog machines. Witchcraft stopped being something you died for and became something you sold tickets for. Irony, immaculate, from burned to branded. The rise of witch aesthetics. Fast forward to modern times. Now, witchcraft is a vibe. Pinterest boards, tarot decks with minimalist fonts, crystal-infused water bottles, a broomstick emoji in your bio. And listen, we're not judging, owning the term, healing, taking back the narrative, beautiful. But it's easy to forget that for centuries, that same word, witch, meant death, not power, not branding, not Halloween, just fire. Modern media still gets it wrong. Let's talk screen. Witch trials in film, usually gothic, dark, sexy, spooky. They leave out the rot, the boredom, the stupid reasons people die. There was no thunder crack every time someone was accused. No violin sting when the sentence was passed. No aesthetic filter. Just awkward silences. Bad bread. Weird dreams. And entire lives collapsing because of them. Fiction turned real pain into fantasy. And while fantasy can heal, it can also erase. Modern comparison moment. Imagine your great-grandmother was killed for reading herbal recipes. And now you see influencers using witchy hashtags to sell eyeliner. Strange, isn't it? It's like watching someone turn your trauma into a brand deal. From fear to folklore to feminism. But the word didn't stay in the grave. By the 20th century, witch began to change again. In some circles, it meant healer. In others, rebel. In many, power reclaimed. Second wave feminism picked up the term. So did queer communities. So did survivors. Because if being a witch means living outside the system, healing without permission, speaking when told to shut up, then maybe we're all witches now. But let's not forget the original wounds. Let's not forget that being called a witch once meant having your children taken, being whipped in public, tortured with God's blessing, killed with a crowd cheering. It wasn't just a label, it was a death sentence wrapped in scripture, a scar dressed up as myth. Witch hunts never really ended, they just evolved. Let's be real, people still get hunted, not with torches, but with misinformation, gossip, cancel mobs, witch hunts on social media, courtrooms with bias, neighborhoods that whisper. History doesn't repeat, it just switches costumes. You wake up again, but this time you're floating, not burned, not beaten, not accused, just quiet. You drift above the cobblestone villages, the moss-covered graves, the charred courthouse, records, the cracked confession, ledgers inked by trembling hands. You see them, the women, the men, the children, not witches, just people. Some staring down their judges, some looking up at the flames, some still clutching dried herbs or wooden spoons. You walk the names that history forgot. You step softly through a silent meadow. There are no pyres here, no shackles, no trials, just names. Etched into the wind, carved into invisible stone. Names whispered only once before they were snuffed out. Annalise, the baker's wife. Marta, the childless. Midwife. Jacob, who walked funny and sang too loud. Alina, whose cat slept on her roof. They are still here, not haunting, just waiting to be remembered. Witch, a word, a wound, a warning. Now you understand. The word witch was never about magic. It was about control, about fear disguised as faith, about power pretending to be protection. Calling someone a witch was society's way of saying you don't belong, you're too different, you're too much, and then punishing them for it. The world still hunts, just quieter now. We still see it today, not with fire, but with algorithms, with rumors, with viral videos and hashtags. People still whisper, still judge, still exile. Witch hunts didn't end, they evolved, and every time we blame without proof, accuse without pause, or punish difference, we add one more log to a fire that should have died 400 years ago. But there's something beautiful, too. You survived this journey. You walked through the dark. You listened to the silenced. And you made it here, to the end. Now you carry them with you, not as ghosts, not as horror stories, but as reminders that truth matters, that empathy saves, that remembering is resistance, and maybe, just maybe, being a little strange is sacred. As you drift to sleep, let this story settle in your chest like a lullaby laced with embers. Let it remind you that history isn't just what happened, it's what we choose to tell. That silence can be survival, but remembering is rebellion, and that sometimes the scariest monsters wear robes, not horns. So tonight, as your pillow softens beneath your head and your eyes begin to close, remember, greatness is flawed, fear is loud, but truth, even whispered, outlives fire. Sleep well, traveler of time, and may you never burn for being yourself. Subscribe for more boring history you'll never forget. Comment, what would they have accused you of back then? And tell us, which historical era do you want to wake up in next?